Welcome to the Mason Dukacek Show. And before we jump in, this episode is brought to you by WorkforceAlchemy.com, helping leaders uncover hidden profit leaks inside their business operations. Jennifer Doty is a customer success and leadership coach and author of Just Lead and Find the Right Role. Her work sits at the intersection of leadership, client success, and practical growth. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Mason. Excited to be here.
So when you talk about cutting through organizational noise, when you walk into a business that feels chaotic, what are the first signs that tell you where the real problem usually is?
Yeah. So in all my experience, I've had, I don't know, 10, 12 different lives over the course of 30 years of a career. And so I've had a lot of different types of roles. And what I've learned is that it's really smart to do a lot of listening when you first take on a new role, when you first enter a new company, enter a new position. If you listen with your ears and don't speak as much, you will learn a lot about an organization. And that includes, meeting with your partner, leaders, meeting with the associates on your team. I often say to my team members and also some of my partners, like, if you could wave a magic wand, what would you like to be different around here? What do you wish would go away? What do you wish would be easier? And like through that conversation, you tend to get nuggets of things that you can focus on and areas of opportunity. I pride myself in saying that, why I'm usually put into a role is to help my team do their job better and to just get blockers out of their way or people out of their way or obstacles out of their way, right? And so when you listen, you hear a lot of it.
That's solid, consistent advice. I had a guest on, maybe a month or two ago, Neil Marshall. He was I guess, president of Health Search Partners. And he told me the story of a CEO, a new hospital system. I think it was in Lubbock, Texas. I'm not positive, but he basically told his wife when he got the job, hey, take care of the house, get us moved. And he literally moved into the hospital, I guess where the residents sleep in between shifts or whatever, slept on those bunks and literally lived at the hospital. Like you said, he listened, he observed, and he experienced the things that others wouldn't have noticed sitting in an office. And, he would ask some of the people like, hey, what do you think about this here? And they'd be like, these beds are really uncomfortable. He's like, well, that's something I can fix. And he, after sleeping on them,
Exactly.
he agreed, but he listened and he took action of things that were easy to do, fast to do, showed immediate improvement and responsiveness. And his start at that company was excellent. I mean, how could it not be?
Yeah. It's easy, I find early on when you listen, you can find, to your point, some quick wins, right? And so what I'm probably most proud of in my day job is I will have associates who come to me and they say, you know how to get stuff done around here. Like, you just get stuff done. You move things forward. And so it's really important, I believe, as a leader, when you're looking to get people to all run the same way, right? And sometimes be motivated when they don't feel like it, right? What are the things that you can do to do that? And so when you can emulate, I'm somebody who will roll up my sleeves and do the work with you if I need to, it really does help. But being a leader who can get stuff done, whatever that looks like for you, I think is also really important.
So I guess the answer to the question about first signs, there would be people not listening. I mean, that would be a dead giveaway. In your experience, where do companies most often misdiagnose friction in the customer value chain? And what should leaders be looking at instead?
Yeah, I often find at many companies and many businesses that you get so wrapped up in what you're doing and you're so excited about your goals and your targets and your outcomes that you often don't sit back and think of it from the role of a customer, right? And what is most important to them? What do they care about first and foremost? Because often a lot of the things that you're worried about, the customer doesn't give a rat's what about. They just don't care. It's not on their radar. They want to either to have a better experience, they want it to be easier, they might want it to cost less, like whatever the thing is that matters. And I often talk about in the customer life cycle or a customer journey, what are the moments that matter most, right? Because it's not all of it. It's certain parts of the journey and certain interactions with you as a company that matter, right? Is it your customer service? Is it fixing problems quickly and efficiently for someone, right? What are those things that matter the most for them? And then fine tuning those things so you are the best at those things for the things that are within your wheelhouse.
So when a leadership team truly starts making decisions from the customer's point of view instead of their own internal priorities, what happens?
Well, magic happens with the customer. The customers are usually moving, doing whatever they can to do more business with you, to advocate for you with other people, to be a referral. We always talk about so today I work at a company called 3Flow, which is my 9 to 5 part of my portfolio career. And we have a platform, a technology platform for group insurance carriers and brokers. So think B2B, right? And so what we dream about is how are we the platform that carriers and brokers, it's the only place they want to do business. It's the only place they want to work because we make it so easy, right? And so those are the types of things that happen when you start making decisions and start having outcomes that are driven by the customer's point of view. They flock to you, which is what we
What
all
happens
want.
internally? What happen I mean, obviously, it's gonna be a better customer experience if executed well, but what
Mhm.
happens internally? I mean, does that take a little bit of a learning curve, or do people typically respond well to the shift from, "Well, I think and I believe, and this is what I see," to listening to what the customer sees and what the
Yeah.
customer thinks and what customer believes? I mean, does that take discipline? Does that take constant reminders? Internally, what's that look like?
It takes practice, right? And so when I spent 20 years of my career at MetLife, years ago, one of the things we started doing from a customer mindset standpoint is we'd have an executive team meeting and we'd have an open chair in the room. And that chair was for the customer to remind us visually and mentally that every topic we talked about, what did that person who sat in that chair care about? So it's a practice, Mason. Like people need to, it's not something that comes naturally. You might be in the
That's what I was
finance
getting at.
department. Yeah, it's
Because
not a
people
natural thing. Yeah. And the further you
what's
are away from the customer experience, the harder it is, right?
you know, I did a blog post on this probably almost a year ago. I went out to Las Vegas and I stayed at a very nice hotel, and the experience was not. And I'm not one to go online and bash anybody. That's not how I roll. I want to contribute and try to help. So I asked for the manager. I said, "Hey, look, I know people complain all the time, but I'm not trying to bash you here. I don't want you to get in trouble. I know that your effort was there, but there are systems in place and rules that you've put in place in this customer experience that make zero sense and are a terrible customer experience, and they can be remedied easily." And her response to me was, "I appreciate that." She goes, "But the best thing that you can do is actually go and write a bad review, because the people that make those decisions are above what happens here, and they don't listen. They don't stay at this hotel. They don't
Mhm.
pay attention to anything that we tell them unless they see it on a bad review that doesn't exist." And I was just like,
Right.
wow, like,
Yeah.
why don't you come and stay in your hotel? Experience what it's like. Feel what it's like to be a customer. Because if they did, they wouldn't have accepted what I experienced. And I'm not like a high maintenance at all. I mean, these are basic, simple things that were just, and I don't want to go on a long rant about it, but they were basics. Trust me when I say simple, easy fixes that anyone could do. But that poor manager was not empowered. I mean, her heart was in the right place, but she had responsibility, but she didn't have the authority commensurate with that responsibility. And I felt for her. So, what is one example of maybe a bottleneck between teams and technology that may have looked small on the surface, but had a major impact on customer experience and revenue?
You know, I would say there in my experience, well, there's been a lot of opportunities, but I find often it's the small things. And often what I've seen, especially most recently, is are the teams talking to each other? Are the people who do the work working together, collaborating to unblock what needs to be blocked, right? And so what I love to do is like, just get me the people who do the work in a room. Let's not talk amongst the executives anymore about what we're going to do. And then we're going to push it down on our organizations. And I've done this recently with our team. I'm like, nope, I'm going to meet with the team of the people who does the stuff. And I'm going to get them together and explain what we need to do, why we need to do it, make it clear on what outcomes I'm looking for. And then I'm going to help micromanage the process until they start doing it themselves. And it's miraculous what happens, right? You got to kind of teach people what you expect out of them. And then recognize and validate them when they start doing the behaviors that you need them to do. So, like recently, we've been following up with carriers and brokers around like making sure we're doing the right things on the platform and we're unblocking things that get stuck at different parts in the policy journey, right? And I went to my boss and I'm like, listen, I know all these people don't report to me, but I don't care. I'm like, this is for the benefit of the good. Are you all good? If I have this meeting once a week, yep, 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 do whatever you want, fine. So I pulled all the doers together who run the relationships and say, okay, this is like the safest place you can be. What is it you need to solve and unblock what's stuck? And you'd be amazed at when people feel comfortable and safe that they share. I'm like, and we've had some topsy-turvy conversations, and I've had moments where I'm like, if you guys don't tell me what's broken, I can't fix it. And you know I like to fix things, right? And so when they clam up and they're like, oh, I'm not going to say anything because she's here. And, I'm like, no, 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 tell me what's wrong so I can make it better, right? And so
Right.
when you can be vulnerable as a leader, to say, I'm in this with you and we're going to solve for XYZ, whatever it is, you'd be amazed at what happens. I also think sometimes it's helpful when you're not the boss of the team. I'm like, I'm just Switzerland. I'm just here to make it better. Like, you don't report to me. I don't really care, but I'm going to tell you what I need you to do. Right. And so I think sometimes like shifting that dynamic a little bit, Mason, also helps too, because, on paper, they don't have to do what I say, but for the good of the nation, we're all here trying to work towards the same outcome.
Silos are real. And I think back to a company that I did business with. This would have been 20 years ago. It was a printing company, and
Mm,
the sales manager and the production manager, they didn't like each other. It was almost like a Cold War. It's like, you stay on your side and mind your business, leave me alone. I'll mind my business, and peaceful coexistence, if you will. And one time, I guess in the lunchroom, one of the sales reps was sitting with one of the guys in production, much like you're saying, not the bosses, just two guys in two different departments sitting there having lunch. And the sales rep was complaining, he's like, man, I wish we could do this certain type of printing because I'm sick of referring all of this type of work to competitor XYZ down the street who can do this. What I would have made in commissions this year alone on stuff we referred out, I could go on a couple vacations. Like, this is ridiculous. I wish we had the ability to do that. And the production workers like, well, we can do that. He's like, what? What do you mean we can do that? He's like, yeah, no problem. All I can do is this, that, and the other thing. And of course we can. And what they learned was, and that's just one rep referring. So not only did that company not get that revenue, but their competitors got stronger. That's a double loss. And why? Because you had two
silos.
managers that wouldn't talk, two silos. And what was the solution? Exactly what you said.
Yeah.
So
I
I know you've
often
written.
say to people, I just one more thought. I often say to people, what are you waiting for permission for? You have my permission. Are you waiting for somebody to tell you, yes, you may? If you see something, it's like I tell my kids, if you see something that needs to be done, would you just do it? Like, you don't need my permission to go do that.
Right. So you've written about leadership lessons that a boss cannot teach you.
Mhm.
What are some of the most important ones, and how did you learn them the hard way?
Yes. So my first book, which is called Just Lead, and it's about what what a boss never or a book never would teach you, but experience will. And I think some of the most important learnings that I've had is how to navigate difficult people and difficult situations. And through a lot of self development work on my own, I've learned it usually has nothing to do with you. Why someone is having a hard day, showing up in a way that's not really meeting you where you are, right? And so what are the opportunities and how can you reframe and or change your own tone, your own approach to meet that person where they are? And a lot of it helps when you come from a place of vulnerability and saying like, hey, Mason, that conversation didn't really feel great for me. I don't know how it felt for you, but I know we're both just trying to move XYZ forward. And like, how can I help you? Right. Or I always love the phrase, I need your help. Right. When you say I need your help to someone, their defenses usually come down at least a little bit. Right. And they're thinking people genuinely show up every day wanting to do the right thing, wanting to win the day. Even that might not look that way to you. That's really people roll out of bed and really want to do well, right? And so often people will meet you more where you are when you phrase things that way and ask for people's help.
Plus, it elevates their status. Like, if I know everything, I wouldn't be coming down talking to you. Like, hey,
Correct.
I could use your help. You bring value that I recognize. Like, that's a good point. In companies chasing growth, where do you think leaders most often create friction accidentally, even while believing that they're doing the right things and that it's helping?
Yeah, sometimes I've found, people are often looking for the next new thing to solve for the growth challenges or the profitability challenges. And often when you step back and you look at what already is in your plan, what you are already doing, what you can do more with what you have, the answers you need are right there, right? And so it will often create chaos in an organization when you sign up for the next new shiny toy, the next new shiny process, whatever that looks like, right? And I find when leaders can step back and say, oh, look at the 10 things that were already on our agenda. Can we do them better? Can we do them faster? Can we do them more efficiently? The answers you need are often right there.
So that kind of leads me into another angle here. I had someone on the other day. What was her name? It was Hannah Bauer was her name, and I asked her. I said, "If you there was only one piece of advice you could give, what would it be? And what's the most important thing?" And she said, "Alignment." She didn't hesitate for a second. And in your opinion, when an organization has ambitious goals but weak alignment, what conversations need to happen before new dashboards, KPIs, or tech tools can actually help?
You need to really get honest with yourself as a leadership team. We have this exercise that we do at Three Flow often where we had a coach who taught us how to invite Frank into the room. Sometimes I'll call her Francine, but like, how can you really be open and honest and say, okay, I'm going to invite Frank in the room and I'm just going to say what I need to say. And this might not come out with all the right words, but I need to get the words out, right? And so when you can step back and be honest and open with your thoughts, with your feelings, with your opinion, you'd be amazed at how things can change the dynamic of where you are headed as a leadership team, because poor alignment is usually the result of lack of communication or lack of trust. So it's usually a leadership problem, or it is we're not on the same page because we don't know what each other is doing. In my opinion, I think those are the two biggest bottlenecks to alignment.
Well, because her answer caught me off guard, but it really made me think. I'll go ahead and tell the story again for those who didn't see that episode. But when I was 16, I had a fast car, and I was a responsible teenager by any stretch of the imagination. I made good grades, National Honor Society, fleet. I kept my nose clean. I avoided trouble, hung out with good people, made good decisions. But my vice was I had a very fast car at 16, and I loved to go fast. And in my mind, as a 16-year-old being responsible, that meant if I wanted to go fast, I would go out in the middle of nowhere on a straight stretch because I knew I didn't want to jeopardize anyone else. I didn't want to have to worry about cars coming on or off. So I went somewhere where there was no traffic. It was straight so that I knew that I wasn't a professional race car driver, even though I was going to be driving those guys' speeds. I didn't want to have to worry about turning or anything like that. I just like, hey, I want to go fast and I want to see those light posts go boom, 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 to boom, 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 boom. And I did, I did. But what I learned from that about alignment, if I'm going 60 miles an hour and I steer a little bit, I can go into the next lane and it's no big deal. I can go back into the lane I'm supposed to be in. It's no big deal. At a slow speed, it's easy to adjust and stay between the ditches. But if I'm doing twice that, I'm covering twice the distance in the same amount of time. And where it might take me 1 second to move into the lane to the next lane at 60 miles an hour, at 120, I'm in the ditch. And I think about organizations and how important alignment is. And like, oh, if you're going slow, this is no problem. You can adapt and adjust along the way, no problem. But if your goal is to really go fast, and I'm not saying you got to go from 60 to 120. I'm just saying that if your goal is to go really fast, alignment matters. If you're not going straight, you're covering a lot more ground in the same period of time. You will run your company into the ditch. So I really, that conversation with her made sense. And I love what you're talking about, especially about the communication and not knowing what's going on. I think you're dead on with that. So you've spoken about helping people find their right new role. How does that idea connect to leadership and performance inside an organization?
Yeah. So my second book was called Find the Right Now Role, because I firmly believe that the role you're in is just the role for right now. It's not going to be the role you're in forever. This is not 20, 30 years ago where people started in one role and stayed at a company for 30, 40 years. I mean, there's still a couple of those people out there, but it's not the norm anymore. And I really believe in leading and coaching a team and an organization, being transparent and open minded, especially in this day and age with how fast things are changing, to help people think about their careers a little bit differently. And I'm very candid with my team. I'm like, listen, if I can help move you into the next role here at Three Flow, awesome. But if not, happy to help you move into the next role somewhere, right? Because I mean, listen, all the folks that I work with are, are definitely in the earlier stages of their career. I'm like, we're not going to be here till we retire. I go, maybe a couple people will, but like most of us will
Sure.
not, right? And how do I help set you up for success for the future? How do I impart some of my experience and wisdom to help you get out of your own way, right? How do I help you learn new skills and develop new capabilities, like how you're going to leverage AI in your next job, right? That's what's really important to me and how I lead a team and how I lead people across our organization. Like, I want you to be a better human when you leave here, right? And that how are you always working on your resume? Right. Like, I learned the hard way after 20 years what it was like to go look for a job after 20 years in organization. When I started, there was no LinkedIn, Mason. There wasn't such a thing back in 2003. And then out I come and like, oh, I got to do it this way. Like, I don't really have a great network. Right. And so teaching people how to always be on the journey of, I am in charge of my career and the trajectory of my career, and it's not up to somebody else, right? You really need to be in the driver's seat much more today than years and years ago.
And I know there are some companies, in my opinion, should be encouraging that, just like what you're talking about, where some of them are fearful, like, oh, they'll leave. It's like if someone's on a path of constant and never ending improvement, they're becoming incrementally more valuable in the role that they're in.
Yes.
But fear, anyway, you'll get me on a tangent there. What's your approach for deciding which metrics matter most? And how do you keep leaders from drowning in measurements that do not really drive better decisions? I mean, I'm not, obviously metrics are important, but what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah. And oh, back in the day, man, I had a notebook of metrics. Like, I'll never forget, like, the amount of metrics that were tracked back in my prior lives were ad nauseum, right? And so I think it really, and now I have an amazing opportunity. Like, every quarter, every year, we focus on, well, what's the goal? We want to grow the business by this and at this level of profitability. Awesome. Okay, what are the things we need to do to move that dial? And we break it down into targets, right? And make sure that they are all associated with, what's that going to equate to? If I do this one thing, what does it get me when I'm done, when I hit it, right? And so making sure it's very tangible on how the quarterly goal equates to the overall target. And then most importantly, helping associates see where they are in that picture, right? Because the further away you get from the goal, the more you're like, what is it that I do all day? And how does it impact that thing up there? Right. And so making it real for associates so they can see where they are apart along that journey and how they are helping drive that impact, I think is super, super important. Right.
That reminds me of a story of a young HR exec, not, they weren't even exec, young HR manager that really wanted to make a name for herself. And one of the metrics that was, I'm using air quotes for those that are listening and not watching. One of the metrics was speed to hire. Like, how fast can we get people?
Yep.
Because the people out in the company were like, hey, we need bodies. We need them fast. Give me bodies yesterday. And the metric then became, how fast can we do this? And she accommodated those metrics, cut a bunch of corners on pre-employment screening and pre-employment testing, et cetera. And, oh, they got bodies all right, but they weren't the right fit for the job. And that's why they kept turning over.
Yeah.
And when this young HR manager who cut corners because she thought speed was the metric that they should be paying attention to, lost sight of, well, let me rephrase it. She didn't lose sight of it. She took those statistics to her boss and thought she was going to get praised. And the boss, who had the wisdom, saw a dumpster fire and said, well, why are these people turning over like this? These are not the right fit. We need quality. Speed's important, but not at the expense of quality fit. If we were doing this right the first time, then you wouldn't have to replace the people in this position 4 times or 5 times in a year. And so, and that's one particular case where metrics, but that leader didn't really take the time to explain because everyone's so hustle and bustle and they were hurrying that conversation, that communication didn't take place. It's like the manager heard, I'm going to be evaluated on my speed metrics. This is a chance for me to make a statement and showcase my skills. She cut corners, quality suffered, and it created more work and more expense and more hassles and headaches than doing it right the first time. But that wasn't the directive she was given, and I understood it. Can you think about maybe a time when a team was stuck in ambiguity? What'd you do to create momentum, and what can other executives learn from that example?
Yeah, often when you're unsure of what to do next, it makes sense to step back and really talk about what's most important, right? And so, one of the challenges my operations team had like last fall, last summer, was we needed to determine how we could be more scalable, more, how do we scale, how do we grow without from a profitable standpoint, right? And we really stepped back and looked at all of our processes, right, which we thought were all very important, and we were very tied to the level of the metrics that went along with those and how good those were, right? And so, which was great. But we really stepped back and said, okay, if we're going to do this more efficiently and more effectively, how do we think outside of the box? And so there was an amazing book that I read last summer called 10 times is better than 2 times, right? And it's the methodology of like thinking even bigger, because when you think about 2 times growth, Mason, there's a lot of options. If I'm just going to double what I have, well, I could do it 40 different ways. But if you're going to grow 10 times, you got a lot fewer options to pick from if you're looking at the same time frame, right? And so I digested, I summarized the book, I used a little chat GPT, I summarized it and sent it out to my team. I'm like, I know you're not going to have time to read this whole thing, but I want you to read 4 slides of the highlights. And we went into that planning session that week. And it really helped them think about, well, if we're going to go big or go home, we only have a couple options. And that was when we made the decision to outsource 100% of our transactional work. Because we said, if you're just going to go here, well, I got 50 different ways I can get there. But if you're going to go here in the same time frame, we don't have that many choices, right? And so it allowed us to collectively as a team rethink what options were possible, right? And so we really spent the time on saying, is there any reason why we wouldn't outsource 100% of the transactional work? Go. And everybody around the room talked and, raised their concerns. And I'm like, okay, well, what if I said, we're going to put guardrails about accuracy? Fine. I feel better about that. What if I told you we're going to give you guys the opportunity to sequence the workflows in the right way, so we're not moving it all at once? Okay, I feel better, right? And we got ourselves to a place where we made a really hard decision that impacted people and restructured the organization within 4 months, but we felt good about it, right? And I'd say good enough about it, right? And that was huge. That was huge for where we're headed. We saved, we not only saved money, we were able to scale. We now have the ability with vendors to turn up the dial or turn it down, which you can't do with resources, with full-time resources, right? So it makes us much more flexible.
There's a lot of wisdom in what you just said. I think back to one of my favorite books was Tim Ferriss's book, 4 Hour Work Week. And what he
Yes.
talked about was the concept of setting unreasonable goals because there's less competition there.
Yes. Same thought.
If I want to be the best XYZ company in New York City, well, I'm competing with every other company that thinks that they can be the best in New York City. If I want to say I want to be the best in the United States, then that's fewer because there's people that are only thinking about New York City aren't thinking about what's necessary to. If I want to say, hey, I want to be the biggest in the world, that is a very, very small one. That's the difference of what you're talking about, growing 2x
Exactly.
versus 10x. One of my favorite quotes in his book, Tim said it's easier to go to a bar and walk out with the one perfect 10 than it is to compete with everyone else for the 5 8s that are there because
A lot more
everybody thinks
competition.
everyone thinks the 5 8s are achievable and they don't even think about what's possible beyond there. And there's less competition there. So I love what you're saying about the 10x thinking versus the 2x thinking. That's very, very valuable for anybody watching or listening. If there was just I know you've got a ton of wisdom. You've written multiple books and ton of wisdom and lots of life experience. If there was just one piece of advice you could give to those who are listening today, what's the most important piece of advice you could offer and why?
The most powerful thing I've learned is our biggest challenge is what happens between these two ears. So if you can think about the beliefs that you believe to be true and really sit down and diagnose and dissect, are they really true? And what are the beliefs that you want to be true? And how there's evidence of that already in your life. Right? The noise that happens in our head is the one thing that holds more people back than anything else. It's not your boss. It's not your team. It's not the industry. It's not AI. It's what's happening in your head. And if you can quiet the noise and rewrite those beliefs, anything that you want is possible. And I am a witness and an example of that. I have recreated my life. I have recreated my identity. I'm building a portfolio career. If you told me at age 30, this is what I'd be doing, I'd said, you're nuts, Mason. This is never possible. Nobody's going to allow me to do it. Well, you know what? I've allowed me to do it. I gave
You didn't need
myself
permission. I'm gonna pull your line from earlier in our conversation. You don't have to ask for permission.
stop asking for permission. You know, the only person you have to ask permission of is yourself.
Amen to
And
that.
that is hard to do. I mean, are you going to
Sometimes
ask
it is.
yourself permission to earn more money? Are you going to ask yourself permission to have a balanced life that you love and not a job that you're counting down the hours and the days until you can retire? You're the only person you have to ask permission of.
So for people that want to know more about you, your company, your work, your speaking engagements, your books, what are the best ways for them to learn more or to connect with you?
Absolutely. You can find me on LinkedIn, Jennifer Doty, or you can also find me at jenniferdoty.com on my website. Either way, you can contact me.
Awesome. You want to give highlights about your books? A couple
Sure,
takeaways from your book?
absolutely. Yeah. So, Just Lead was my very first book. It was part of my journey to get myself figure out how to get on LinkedIn. Right. And so it's a culmination of all my LinkedIn posts because I had a recruiter back in the day when I started looking for a new role from MetLife who said, you liking things on LinkedIn, this is not Facebook. That is not visibility. You need to be a voice. And I was like, oh, I mean, I was panicking. I was panicking at the time. But I started to author what they never told me about being a leader. And it's a culmination of all those things that I put together in a book. I had a dear friend who called me after 4 months of me posting 3 times a week. He goes, put that in a book. People will buy it. I'm like, really? He's like, yes. He's like, that's all the words of wisdom that anybody could need. So that was my first book in 2022. And then in 2024, I got a lot more vulnerable. And I wrote a book about my journey from the day I got the phone call that my role was being eliminated. After years of doing it myself, I got the call and I'm like, oh, okay, now it's me. Here we go. All the way through the first 30 days of my current role at 3Flow and all the things people don't tell you about that process, how to leave a job gracefully with your head held high, how to build a network from just about nothing on LinkedIn, on how to make a job out of looking for a job without driving yourself stir crazy, how to solve for benefits, how to think about your taxes, like all of the things. How do you make income in the meantime to stop the bleeding so you're not going into your savings or your severance, right? All of those things nobody tells you, but that along the way I learned. And so now it's very often when someone will call me and say, I just got laid off, I bought your book. And I'm like, well, it'll help because there's a lot of things in there that, people don't know.
Well, I'm very thankful for the time and wisdom you shared. It's been a pleasure having you, and hopefully we get together again sometime soon and talk about other aspects of the things that we didn't have time to get into today. But I really appreciate it. It was a pleasure having you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mason. Appreciate it.